Okay, so what do you do if you don't like what you see? You look at your solar return for the next year and you say that, this sucks. I don't want my year to go like this. Or, well, I was going to say, or better yet, you're already in a year and you want to change it. You can. I'll get to that in a second. There are two ways to change the trajectory for the year. One of them has to be done before the year starts. The other one can be done during the year. Okay, so the first method for changing the birth year that is to come is to travel. If you never take time for yourself to actually arrange your year and start it off on the right foot, then your birthday is the way to do it, because what you'll do, at least psychologically, is establish a kind of baseline saying, yeah, on my 37th year, I went to such and such. I took a trip there and it was awesome. It's different from just staying in the same place and having your year go on and on the way it has been. So what you see right here is my solar return for 2016, which I actually spent here in San Antonio, versus an alternate solar return, which would have happened had I been in Pasadena, California, because I'd been out there before, and this would have been an alternate place. The main thing that you'll notice is that the San Antonio story is a story of the restriction and the communication and all of that. The Pasadena story is a story of the commitment. And this is kind of an interesting twist. Let me see if I can protect the identities of everyone involved here. But uh, so when you're in San Antonio, you're in a particular context. In my case, it was the home context for everybody. And one of the things that can seriously, seriously ruin a relationship is input from people who aren't in the relationship. And when we're all doing our thing from our home base and stuff starts to go wrong, what do? We go back to our home base and we tell everybody who is in our corner about how bad the other person is. And this was the case with me and the person for both of us. But it was the case for me and the person during the 2016 thing. We were in our home base. So accordingly, all of the problems get amplified and they don't get helped by people's cliques and family and stuff like that. And you've got all kinds of people in your ear telling you what they would do, even though they're not involved in it. Um, I did it. I know she did it. And that's just how the relationship went. But imagine a scenario in which you're away from your home base and you actually get to go to certain places because you want to go there for your birthday. Now, this is, of course, before you start dealing with everybody for the year, but you can see how a shift in location turns down the influences from the stuff you're used to and turns up other influences. And that's not astrology. That's just, basic framing of events. So what one might guess could have happened had we started the year in a place other than our home base was that we would have emphasized a different kind of year. And here's where you see it. Also, the life-changing stuff would not have been the doctor therapy thing, but instead would have been the kind of spirituality thing and the fun sides. I mean, that exchange that I went through really could have gone either way up to a point. There was a point at which there was no salvaging it. But what I tell you is that I really believe that had we been somewhere else other than our home city, we probably would have been able to work things out. But we couldn't. If you don't like what you're seeing, or you don't like what you're expecting from a particular future-oriented birthday chart, you can make plans to be somewhere else for your birthday, and it will allow you to basically set the stage in your own mind for how you want that year to go. Now, the other thing that you can do if you don't like where your birth chart is headed is to uh, change your attitude. You really want to change your attitude. Like I can't stress this enough. A lot of people think of Saturn as a malefic, that is a negative planet, which will mess things up and be really problematic. I've learned in my own chart that Uranus can often be problematic. Not really Saturn. Saturn's well behaved. But if I'm going through a year where Uranus is going to be emphasized, then I'm going to have to clean up my view of Uranus for that year. Um, this is something that you can do during the year in question. Maybe it's too late to go back in your time machine and have traveled somewhere else for your birthday. But what you can do is say, the reason I'm interacting with this social information here is because I'm trying to take care of people. See, we've got this series either way. And so we take the negative planets and we remind ourselves that the reason we run into those negative planets is because those negative planets are next to positive things that we value. Uh, if we just didn't care at all, we wouldn't even mess with Malefics. We wouldn't go to the job we hate because, we don't value anything. But we go to the job we hate, or some people do, because apparently they've got something that that job is useful for. And this is the way you kind of change your view of problem areas in the chart. I mean, if you see it coming, and you can say, well, this year seems to say that I'm going to be complaining about a lot of things, then you'll have to think about your values. Why do you complain? You complain because you've got values that are worth complaining about. And so an asteroid like Siri can become a representative of your values instead of a representative of you just having a hard time. A planet like Saturn can become a representative of boundaries that you're establishing because you want, you know, whatever it's attached to, rather than just describing something as a terrible relationship or a waste of time or whatever. I describe things in certain ways, but I don't really feel that bad about it. So don't get me wrong. Although I've said that this year in question was bad, my general attitude towards it, um, well, sorry, although I've said that the relationship that the year describes was bad mainly, um, the year in general never really became a problem. It was like, well, this is just the way we're destined to evolve, I suppose, or the way we choose to evolve. And I think that at the end, you look back at one of these years and you'll say, man, I didn't have to see it in a negative light. By the way, in between the last video and this video, I revisited the progression of the moon because for some reason I thought that you were supposed to move the moon 17 degrees in a day. I don't know where this comes from. Um, I guess it has to do with where the moon is in signs or whatever. I've heard 17. I've heard something closer to like a 16-ish, 12-ish, a 14-ish. But just look at the asteroids. You just need a ballpark figure. It's not precise. I mean, you can go back in your own historical data and see how you view things. The difference between progressing the moon 12 degrees and 7 degrees and 14 degrees, much like choosing house signs, has to do with what you emphasize. Are you emphasize the story you will ultimately tell? Are you emphasize the intuition you're getting? Are you emphasizing the duties that are ahead of you, the feelings that you're getting? Those play out on time spans that aren't always equal. So I've found that progressing it by about 12 degrees-ish works fine. But if other people are used to doing it some other way, I argue, as we do in the book Full Spectrum Astrology, that um, you know, go with what works for you, but it has to do with how you tend to frame the things that you're looking at. Anyway, that's it. If you don't like what you're seeing regarding your birth time, you can change where you are on your birth date, or you can change your attitude towards the planets that you don't like looking at.